we'll, with 3 minutes past 4, we'll make a start. So first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. So many of you may know me already, but my name is Jonathan Roberts. I'll be the assistant principal for years 3 and 4 next year. I'll be new to that role, so it'll be my 4th year as assistant principal at WSO. This will be my 8th year at WSO as well. So I've been in the school for a long time, and I started off my journey in year 4 as a classroom teacher. And then I became head of Emerald House. And since then, this will be my 4th year as an assistant principal, where I've been looking after curriculum design and teaching and learning, and also the pastoral team and specialists as well. So I'm really glad to be linked to year groups and to a group of teachers, and also more closely to the students again as well. So that's really exciting for me. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm working closely with you all as parents to ensure that your students, your children, get the very best experience at WSO. We care a lot about transition, and rather than having children move through school with really big steps along the way, we like to make sure that school feels very smooth, and the journey that a child takes through school is really smooth and progressive. So these kind of interactions, these kind of engagements are really important, so that you know what's going on, and so you can feel confident about the next steps that your child is taking. And also we open up a conversation. So yes, this presentation is going to involve a lot of Sinead and I talking, but also it's us responding to questions that you've already asked, and there'll be the option for you to ask questions at the end as well. So we are beginning a year-long conversation with you in order to best meet the needs of your child. So we're very excited about the year ahead. And this session, Sinead will take the majority of the presentation. But during the presentation, all participants will be muted so that everybody can hear clearly. So if you have any questions, you can enter those into the chat or hold off until the end. Otherwise, it just becomes very disruptive. Sometimes we spend too much in one area. We might miss other important bits of information. Okay, so make sure you remain muted throughout the first part of the presentation, and make sure that we turn our cameras off, and there will be questions at the end, as I've mentioned. So now I'll hand over to Sinead, who I'm very excited to be working closely with next year. She's an incredible teacher, and she's incredibly organised, and she's very compassionate with the students too. So I'll hand over to Sinead, who will take us through the rest of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roberts. If you would just keep an eye on the waiting room as well, because there was still a few coming in there. I think we should hopefully have them all joining, but just in case. So hi everyone, my name is Mrs. Napoli. I am currently a year 2 teacher in the school, and I'm moving up to year 3 next year to be the head of year, which I am extremely excited about. I can see some of my class parents on here already, so you're very familiar with my lovely Scottish twang. Hopefully everyone else is able to make me out as well and understand me fully. I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about our integrated curriculum. So as hopefully you are aware, this year we have introduced our integrated curriculum. Traditionally, children have explored their topics through an individual subject-specific lessons within the school. But last year or this year, we have adapted an integrated curriculum approach. This enables children to engage in meaningful learning experiences with links to the real world. So as you can see, we've got all our concepts, we've got our concept in the middle and all of our subjects around the side, so that we're making sure that everything is fully integrated and meaningful for the children. By adopting this approach, it allows us to create learning experiences that are uninterrupted and help to prepare our students for the 21st century. In terms of our concepts that we're going to be exploring in year 3, we're going to look at discovery and how we have evolved, change, how inventions can change the world, and civilization, what makes a successful civilization. In terms of digital learning in year 3, quite similar to year 2, we know that we have used iPads have been integrated into the school from a younger level now, so we've started to bring our own devices from further down the school, so it's something that will continue into year 3. We will use a wide variety of apps to support learning and teaching across year 3, and we aim to infuse classroom with digital learning tools that help the children dive deeper into the curriculum. Some of the websites, some of the apps that we use will be similar to this year, but we will send out a list right at the beginning of the year for apps that would be useful for your child to have. Some of them they will have already, and a few will be new ones moving into year 3. In terms of our specialist lessons, so in year 3, the children will have 2 hours of PE, 1 hour of performing arts. Just like this year in year 2, they'll have 1 hour of outdoor learning for 1 term only. Those children who are Muslim will go to Islamic education for 2 hours. They will have Arabic for 4 hours. And as you know from previous years, Arabic A is for our native Arabic speakers and Arabic B for our non-native Arabic speakers. At WSO, we are continuously assessing your children to ensure that the lessons they receive are personalised and ensure that they make good progress. In year 3, we will be observing and recording the learning that takes place in class and tracking every student, just as we have done this year, through using learning ladders, which I'm sure all of you from this year will be familiar with. As parents, you will have access to the online learning ladders, and this will be updated on a 2-weekly basis. So you can continually see exactly what your child's covering in class and how they are getting on. So for example, if we look at the screenshot on here, if it's got a little green tick, that means your child has met that objective. If, however, it's got a little timer, a little yellow timer, that's something that they've started, that they're developing with, and progressing towards hopefully ending up with the green tick. So we will continue to use the same tool next year, learning ladders, to give you that access to your children, to your children's assessment data. Okay, so in terms of our year 3 timings, students should be at their classroom for 7:40 for their registration. They will finish at 2:50 from Monday to Thursday, and 11:50 on a Friday. So that's slightly extended day, so it will no longer be the 2 o'clock finish in year 3, it will be 2:50, and on the Friday just 5 minutes later at 11:50 to allow the younger children to get out first, and then we will head off. So what will your child need for next year? Some of the children are very excited about this already. They have a different uniform. They're really looking forward to wearing their shirts. And as you can see here, as in previous years, you will collect their uniform or purchase their uniform from Threads, but they should come to school wearing the cream shirt, and they can choose to wear the navy trousers or the navy shorts. Your PE kit will stay the same based on your house. That will be in your house colours. And the children should come to school with their device, with their headphones, and a fully stocked pencil case. So with their pencils, sharpener, eraser, highlighter pens, and so on, just exactly the same things that they've needed for this year. And if we just ensure that they come with their device fully charged, so that when they do need to access things using their iPad, that they have that available to them. So together we can give our children the roots to grow and the wings to fly. We are very aware that parents are children's first educators, and your contribution towards their education is extremely important. And I know that parents love to help support their children at home. So as a parent, here are some different ideas how you can support us and help your child to stay on track and expand their learning opportunities. So some examples, you could set up a daily family routine, including healthy eating and sleeping habits. Talk to your child each day about what they've been doing in school. Sometimes you will get that answer of, oh, I don't know. Do you know, if you probe a little bit deeper, you will get more out of them. Check on assignments, home learning, and projects via Seesaw. It's a fantastic tool for you to use to engage with your children's education, see what they're doing, see what they're learning, and just opens up that discussion about their day. Promote and encourage literacy by reading to your child and allowing them to read for enjoyment. Limit and monitor their TV watching, gaming, social media and computer time. Express high expectations and standards for your child's learning. And tap into community resources with visits to the library, museums, the zoo, theatres, to encourage that continuous learning out with school. And also encourage participation in after-school activities and clubs and sports and art activities. So these are some different ways and different ideas for you to help support your child's learning. Engaged parents are a key factor in helping students in the school succeed. With families, schools and communities working together, then we can best prepare our children for future. And hopefully, as you know from the teachers that you've had this year and the communication with the school this year, it is very open. We do encourage parent support and parent engagement, and long may that continue next year in year 3 too.
There we go. So I'm up now. Thank you so much, Sinead. So a lot of the questions that we were being asked prior to the meeting were about higher performance learning. So this is something that we began the journey of last year, very much an evolution of the way that we were working before. And I wanted to kind of talk through what it means to be a high performance learning school. Essentially, being a high performance learning school means that we have a belief that every child is capable of high performance over time. So of course we understand that children start in different places and they reach that goal at different points. But we believe that with the right opportunities, the right support, and by ensuring that they're sufficiently motivated, all students are capable of high performance. Now, we know that Child A and Child B, they might be performing at different levels at any time. And it's not to do necessarily with their ability. The infrastructure, their brain is exactly the same. So what's the difference? Well, there are a number of things that affect a child's potential in learning. The first is a belief that they can be successful. So being a high performance school is firstly about making sure that every child understands that they can be successful and what the route to that success will look like. The second thing really is about what students are doing. So while a teacher's talking, while they're looking at a material, while they're engaging with a video, what's actually going on? Well, child A might be thinking and embellishing what they're hearing, what they're seeing, whereas child B might just be hearing the noises and not working with the information that they're getting in the right way. So a big part of higher performance learning are developing what we call thinking skills, advanced cognitive performance characteristics. So teaching students how to think about their learning. And there are five ACPs, advanced cognitive performance characteristics. There's meta thinking, there's creating, linking, analyzing, and realizing. And these have come from neuroscience and psychology to ensure that students are learning at their most effective. And so what we're doing is we're building learners. We're not just filling learners' heads with knowledge. We're actually constructing learners so that every learner is working at their full potential and able to achieve high performance. And the other hugely important things are the values, attitudes, and attributes that students come to approach their learning with. And this is how they behave, because they manifest themselves in behaviors. So first of all, the value of empathetic, making sure that students can see things from different perspectives, making sure that they're responding, making sure that they can collaborate. Being agile of mind, not just being able to do the splits, but being agile of mind, making sure that they take a flexible approach to things, very closely linked to the creative, and also being hardworking. If we want to move a child from one position and progress to another, they need to understand the importance of practice, the importance of resilience and perseverance. And that's hugely important. So high performance learning is a belief that every child is capable of high performance over time. It's a commitment from us to ensuring that they get there by making sure we put the appropriate support in place, that we customize the learning, and also that we develop them as learners to ensure that they can reach that high performance. So that's high performance in a nutshell. The next thing that we had a lot of questions about was home learning. Now, home learning, this is something that we developed quite a bit over time. Among our parent community, we have quite a contrast in opinions about home learning. We have a group of parents that want a lot of home learning, want more home learning, and they want it to be more traditional in style. And then we have a group of parents, and it's about equal, it's about 50-50, that feel that their child does enough learning in school and with the clubs and hobbies that they do outside of school, that's quite sufficient. Now, neither one group of parents is wrong. So we've developed a home learning provision that meets the needs of every type of parent, every type of family, every type of student. Because the key thing is, if home learning becomes stressful at home, it becomes unproductive for the learner. And so what we first wanted to do is put the child at the centre of our approach and make sure we were providing something that was going to empower students to be better learners. And so we've created a home learning challenges. There are 23 different icons and types of challenges that the students can do. Now, some of those are very traditional. So some of those will be weekly spellings, weekly times tables. So if you think those things are really important, then that provision is there for you. And what will happen is your child can engage with those week on week, and the teacher will acknowledge those. They'll get a chance at the end of the term to share their learning and with the rest of the class. But also, much of the challenges as well are less direct. So it might be learning through cooking. So for example, it might be take a recipe and double the recipe for a larger number of people. So the students are working with their parents in order to develop their numeracy skills, and they're learning in a more real life scenario. The idea is that we want to aim is to express value and encourage all forms of learning outside the classroom. So if a child is doing gymnastics as a hobby, that's a valid form of learning outside the classroom. And we will recognise that and we'll celebrate that. And at the end of the term, the student will present on how they've developed as a learner through that form of home learning. But it is also, there's an expectation that every child is engaged in one form of home learning each week. So we're here to support you as a family in the way that you want to be supported with home learning. So it's really varied. So if as a family, it can be a bit overwhelming to have the more formal, traditional route of home learning, then you can do some of these fun activities with your child and you can explore learning in that way together. Or maybe if they're already doing a club, that's a valid form of home learning as well. But if you prefer the more traditional route and you want your child to be doing stuff that's more similar to what we're doing in school, then also that provision is there for you too, and we'll support you with that. We want to celebrate and promote learning, not just in school, but beyond school as well. And so that's what this is aimed to do. Right. So if you haven't heard enough from us, I'll just admit this person. If you haven't heard enough from us, there is a Meet the Year 3 and 4 team coffee morning. You can meet us face to face. And that will take place on Friday, the 1st of July, between 10 and 10:45 in the MIDI BLP. And that will be myself, it will be Sinead, and the head of Year 4, Miss Twigger as well. So if you've got any further questions that you want answered, if you just want to meet and say hello, learn more about the exciting curriculum, perhaps have a more one-to-one conversation, then you're very welcome. You can come along. I'll be sharing the slides from this presentation afterwards. And also there is a recording of this presentation for those people that perhaps missed some of it. I'll have to edit off the bit at the beginning before you all joined where I had to relocate. But I'll be sharing those things after this session as well. So you'll have that to look at. There were some questions that came through that before people put in, and then we'll look through the chat as well. So class mixing, we are only mixing one house moving from Year 2 to Year 3, and that's because the numbers within the year group have got a lot bigger, but also from recommendations from our pastoral teams and our inclusion teams. So we've made that decision because it's the best interest of the students, And where it hasn't been in the best interest of the students, we made a different decision not to mix those classes. So there will be mixing in Onyx House, but the other houses there won't. And again, that decision has been made because it is the best interest of the students in Onyx House, but that's not the case in other houses. So as Sinead mentioned, one of the requirements is a device, the iPad. Now we're very conscious, and I've seen some comments already about iPad usage. We develop digital literacy. A big part of digital literacy, it's not as easy to say, a big part of that is the health around how we use an iPad in a way that is reliable, in a way that is healthy and balanced. And so we don't use those devices as a substitute for more creative, tangible ways of teaching. We use those devices when it enhances our ability to find out information, when it enhances our ability to communicate, and when it enhances our ability, importantly, to create. So they've done some wonderful projects in year 3 using technology, communicating and creating, because we know that so much of the ways that we use technology is about consumption, whether we're looking through something, consuming. We want to promote technology as a tool for creation. It's a really important tool. It's growing importance in their future professional lives. They need to become really accustomed to it, but also they need to understand how to live around it as well, and make sure that they're having a real life experience. And so you'll see that the learning that happens in the school is very much based on experiences. There's lots of painting, there's lots of writing in books, there's lots of making things, there's lots of discussion. Children are not just glued to the iPad, but those iPads are a brilliant blended tool to bring those two things together. So this child might be able to forge their own pathway through a lesson because they've got the scaffolding and support through the iPad that they might need to forge ahead, while others might have a bit more support if they need it there as well. And the teacher can work with the students on an equitable basis. So the times of the school day, Sinead's already spoken about, drop-off and collection. So this ties in with the COVID restrictions. It's our aim as a school to return as much as possible to normal. We do await instruction from the KHDA and the Dubai Health Authority on exactly what things will look like next year. We're still waiting on that. So unless we hear otherwise, things will remain pretty much the same. Obviously, we're keen to engage parents, bring parents in, and we've trialled it a number of ways this year to make sure that we can involve parents, open our doors up to the community. So drop-off will continue unless we hear otherwise out the front of primary. But we do still need to remain mindful of the risks of transmission as well. Because, I mean, if we look at, we've currently got quite a few students out at the moment. And so what's really important is that students are in 100% of the time, that they're in school 100% of the time, learning. So that's our first priority. And so if that means that we need to think about new innovative ways of doing things so that we can keep our values of collaboration and opening up our doors to the community, then we have to keep doing that to make sure that we keep the students still really safe and in 100% of the time. So return to school will be Thursday, the 1st of September, although there will be an induction before that for new students. Now we can go through the chat because there's been a few questions. Okay, going to the top. Oh, it's quite a long way. Good afternoon. Is coding, yeah, so, well, one of the areas of the curriculum is computing, and one of the objectives in the computing curriculum is coding. So students will be coding through their integrated curriculum. That's one of the objectives that they'll be looking at. And also, it's a regular feature on our enrichment. Enrichment came up as well as a common question. So our aim is that we'll bring enrichment back within the timetable. Next year, it's been really popular after school. We had to move it after school because they reduced the working week. And we weren't able to reconcile that, but we've managed to find a place for it in the timetable next year. So I think most people will be really happy to see that get back in the timetable and everyone have access to that service. There's students that weren't able to access it because they were returning on the bus and they could be collected. So back to offering that for everyone. And coding is something that we offer almost every term as an enrichment opportunity as well. So that's delivered through the curriculum, and it's a really important skill, and also through enrichment as well. I'm interested in iPads. So we talked about iPads and our emphasis on using them in a way that's healthy. French. So will we continue learning French? So yes, in year 3, they'll be continuing learning French. As they get to year 5, they then open up to French, Spanish, and German, but not till year 5. So they'll be continuing with French. So their house will remain the same. So even if there's a mix happening in the year group, they will stay in the same house. Will they begin structured exams in year 3? No. So we work on formative assessment. Sinead spoke to you about the Learning Ladders platform. That's a platform where we're assessing students' ability to apply their learning across the curriculum. And that's the most valuable form of assessment. Assessment for us is not simply auditing what students can and can't do. Assessment for us is a tool to be able to tell us what we need to do differently. So whether that's how we need to personalize a lesson or what changes we need to make to the planning to address the needs of the students. So we find formative assessment the most reliable for that. We do have some summative assessment, international GL assessments that we do every 2 years. We have CAT4 pass and progress tests, and we use that data in order to better understand the needs of the students and so that we can customize the learning better, so that it's really personalized for the students. But there'll be no structured exams. In Arabic and Islamic, they do have termly assessments because they follow the ministry curriculum. So yeah, we've got the GLs at the end of year 3. Okay, so right, any other questions?
So we had one, Mr. Roberts, about when finding out the new teachers, which is very exciting. The children are going to be finding out their new teacher and meeting their new teacher tomorrow morning for their transition morning. And I know that the students in my class have been excited to find out who they're going to have, and I've heard a few in the year group talking. And it's so nice that before they leave for the summer holidays, they are going to know and have met their new teacher. So I'm sure that they'll all be very excited, come home and let you know about that as well.
There's a question about uniform. So yeah, the houses, as I said, will remain the same. So you can go ahead and buy uniform for your child. Just don't feed them too much over the holidays, because we know children have big growth spurts. So it's a bold move, but definitely good to get that ahead, because the queues and availability can be a bit challenging if we leave that to the last minute. How many pupils per class? That will remain the same as in year 2, so a maximum class size of 28, so it will not exceed 28. So question about explaining why mixing happens in one house and not the other. So I did touch on that before. The decision to mix classes is not made lightly. It's not something that we do automatically. So number one, 3 houses are not going to be mixed, because looking at the dynamics of the class, it was felt that that was not in the students' best interest. We've got 1 house where we felt that the students would benefit from mixing, and so the decision was made there. And of course, we took the views of multiple stakeholders in order to make that decision. So the class teachers, we've taken feedback from parent groups as well. We've also taken feedback from our pastoral team and our inclusion team. We realised that that can create a bit of anxiety for parents and families, and possibly students as well. But I'd like to stress that your children will remain with their closest friends, their preferences will be honoured, so they'll be going with the children that they want, and then the classes will be mixed around. So I really do encourage you to see it as an opportunity for your child, and because this decision has been made in the best interest of the child. If you want to have a conversation about that a bit more one-to-one, I'm certainly happy to have that, because I know that people might want to go a bit deeper. Do we have to choose enrichment each term? Yes, so it will be termly enrichments that the students will be doing. There was a time limit of 1 hour for year 2. I still didn't get answer on my question in terms of time consumption. Is there any official guidelines or not? Many thanks. So I think this is about iPad time. Is that right? Sinead's nodding, so I'm going to go with that. So we in school, we don't have a specific limit to the amount of iPad time that students have. Now, if we were to walk around the school and look at the way that students were using iPads, we would see that the students are not glued to the iPads, but the iPads are quite often present while the students are learning. So the students might be discussing with the iPad present, because the iPad holds a lot of the information, a lot of the support structure for the lesson as well. It's a way that we can make sure that the learning that students are doing is really visible. So the teacher can see what the students are thinking, what the students are understanding in real time, and can respond. So it's a really helpful tool, but it's not at the center of the way that students are learning. Students are still learning through discussion, students are learning through teacher instruction, and they're learning through exploration. When it comes to break times and around the class times, we have a no iPad policy, so students will not be using their iPads during that time, and that's something that we have to constantly refresh on, and we'll be pushing very hard next year, making sure that we do. What need students to understand is how to use it in a way that is beneficial and healthy to them. So I hope that has answered your question. It might not be the answer you wanted, but so assessment, I think we've covered that. So we have formative assessments that will be released to you regularly. So you'll be able to see exactly how your child is getting on. So the plan is to release that about every 2 weeks, so you can get regular updates on how your child is getting on, what objectives they're meeting, and what targets they've got. Also, you have regular reports. We have 3 reports a year and 3 parent consultations where you get to discuss those reports as well. So is it not too long for them to be at school until 2:50? It's quite conventional, the time that the students are in school. This fits with the timetable that we've had for since opening. And our students seem to thrive in that situation. Obviously, we're very attentive to the needs of the students, and we make sure that students are regularly taking restorative breaks. We're looking a lot more at self-regulation, so students are able to identify their own needs as learners. And because we put such an investment in specialist lessons, the day is well punctuated. So each day is very dynamic. It's not simply a case of, I remember when I was at school, we'd all sit down at a table and the teacher would talk at us pretty much from the moment we got there to the moment we left. Whereas now it's very different. It's a very dynamic day, and I think that really helps. There are moments where there's a lot of thinking, there's moments that are very active, and there are moments of play and joy and playfulness, and there are moments of calm and restoration as well. So it means something different for every child, and we have a brilliant pastoral team. Our teachers are incredibly attentive to the needs of the students, and so we work on a case-by-case basis. But that is the school day, and we make that work for every child. So happy for you to reuse uniforms from year 2. In fact, encourage it if they still fit. So it seems like a good idea to me. Save the environment. Will coffee morning be on the 1st of July, be covering similar discussions as today? There'll be a few points which will be the same, but it will be more of an informal conversation. So a chance to sort of chat to us one-to-one. Although Fozzie, you chat to me all the time. How to remove my... Okay, so moving students from Arabic A and Islamic A and to Islamic B. So how to move myself from Arabic and Islamic B to A. So we can make arrangements for that. The best way forward is to contact the class teacher and make a request for that, and we can then do an assessment to see whether they're able to make that move across. It's certainly an easier move from B to A than it is from A to B. So that would be based on assessment, okay? Because obviously there are big access issues. If the child is not very, very fluent in Arabic, that can present real problems. So we have to make sure that the child is ready to make that move. So it's not guaranteed at all. It's not based on will. It's based on their proficiency with the Arabic language. So, but we can make assessments for that, and it is possible to make the move. So, mixing reduce the number of students in every class. So obviously we'll make sure that there's a spread of, and it's equal across all the class as much as we can. There's a lot goes into thinking about how we construct a class, thinking about the different number of Arabic A, Arabic B, the different needs of the students, making sure that they're matched with the right teacher, all sorts of things that go into making those classes. We have a lot of adult support as well. So we've got the teacher, we've got a teaching assistant that works between two classes. We have regular support from the inclusion teacher and the inclusion team as well. So I think our numbers are really healthy and the students get lots and lots of attention. Also, I think there are lots of pluses about having a class that size. It creates a nice dynamic among the students, it creates a good sized community. Okay, so, and again, there will be the coffee morning if people want to sort of have a chat one-to-one about any of these issues. I can see that iPads is still something that some people want to explore perhaps a bit more, but that's probably better to kind of continue in a more one-to-one setting.
I think those questions were coming up as you were still talking about it as well, Mr. Roberts. So I think you've sort of covered that.
Right, so the last question on here. So I think I've covered native English speakers join Islamic A classes. So, so if it's based on their proficiency of Arabic, so there'd have to be an assessment. So essentially it would be, if they're able to join Arabic A, then they'd be able to join Islamic A. The most important thing is that they can access the learning. And then the last thing is pens and cursive writing. Handwriting is really important for the students. It's something that we need to develop in the students. Different students will be working with pens at different times based on when they're ready to move. It's a bit of an incentive to get children to develop their handwriting. Sinead, is there anything that you want to add? Because I was rattling through that list. I'm bound to have missed some things or not said some things that you think are really important.
I'm just having a quick look as you were going through. I think you have touched on most things. There was a comment about having sort of some information sent out about how to set up parental control and giving some advice on that. I think that Mr. Macaulay has sent something previous in the past, but I'll try and get that information from him and can send that out again, just in terms of how to go about setting the parental controls on a device, because that question came up on there as well. There was a question about children going to the cafeteria, but obviously that's not in use just now due to COVID restrictions. That would depend on what further information we're given from KHD and the ministry moving into the new term. But if it stays the same as this year, then no, the cafeteria would not be an option for us. And there's just a few comments about parent-teacher consultations as well throughout the year as well. So it was just saying 10 minutes is sometimes too short and having only 2 throughout the year. As I mentioned earlier, we do have that open door policy. So don't ever feel that you have to wait until the parent-teacher meetings to get in touch with your child's teacher. They have that open relationship. Send them a message, make contact. So it's not like that's your only allocated slot within the year to make contact. We certainly encourage parental involvement, like I said earlier. So you can reach out to your child's class teacher whenever you want. If you've got a quick question to ask them, if it's something that takes a little bit longer, then please do reach out to them. You don't just have to wait to these specific times in the year.
I have the year 4 one starting in 3 minutes. So I will have to just leave in a moment. So there's a few more questions about break timing. So we have 2 breaks in year 3. We have a shorter break time and a lunch break as well. Obviously, there are transitions between lessons and things like that. And we encourage the children to be as active as possible when they're in those break times. Oh, and all the questions have gone there. Listen, there'll be lots of opportunities for you to ask more questions of us. We want to be really accessible. No doubt many of you will have seen me around the school. You'll know I'm easy to get in touch with. I welcome you to get in touch if you have any questions or you want to discuss anything in more depth. I'm always up for a conversation. So, and we want to involve you as much as possible. Following this, I'll make sure that we share the recording with you. I'll make sure that we share the slides with you. And if there are any questions that we weren't able to answer in this session, we'll put them on the end. We'll put written answers on the last slide. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you all.
For your time.